Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the Healthy Aging Network. Today, we're going to be talking about I'm ready to retire, so now what? Please stay tuned. Hi, welcome back. I'm Kathy Tutt, Family Consumer Sciences Educator for Ohio State University Extension in Clark County. And today we're going to be talking about I'm ready to retire. Now what? I'm going to be joined today by Ken Stewart, and I'm going to give Ken the opportunity to introduce himself. So welcome, Ken.
Thank you, Kathy. My name's Ken Stewart, and I'm the Family Consumer Sciences Educator in Monroe County.
You may recognize Ken. He's been on the episodes with me a couple times before, so we work a lot together on some of the aging things, and I'm really excited to have him with me again today. So Ken, let's just start out a little bit about the history of retirement. What can you tell me about the history of retirement?
Okay, Kathy. First, I'd like to just kind of talk about some of the definition of retirement. So if you look it up in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, it says withdraw, it says recall, or it says settle. None of those make you feel really good about what you're going to do, right? Usually it's go in a different direction. So how it all started was U.S. government started military pensions for disabled veterans and widows in colonial times. So the Revolutionary War soldiers were taken care of in that way. The Pension Act of 1890 made pensions available for all veterans over 65 or over, and that served at least 90 days and were honorably discharged, regardless of their employment status. So they could still be working and draw a pension. So pensions for Confederate disabled soldiers and widows were about a third as much as the Union soldiers. By early in the 20th century, state municipal governments began to paying pensions to their employees. Most major cities provided pensions for their firemen and police officers. By 1916, 33 states had passed retirement provisions for teachers. One of the interesting things about looking into this is that the reason that pensions were paid were sometimes to help control the workers. So because people would be afraid to lose their pension, so they behaved well, right? So they wanted to stay, and it kind of had loyalty for the company or whoever's doing that. So that was an interesting thing that I found as I researched. Social Security has been around since 1936. It's called a defined benefit plan. And what that means is it's defined how much it pays out depending on when you retired and what you paid.
I love always to hear the history and the information behind how things got started. But, I feel like when I hear conversations about retirement, the main focus of a lot of people is on the financial side of the topic. But today, we're going to look at retirement through a different lens. We're going to discuss the ways that retirement can affect our emotional health. So I have a question for you. Do you think that retirement for everyone is always a happy milestone?
Kathy, it's usually a goal that folks set for themselves at some time or another. If we can choose the timing and the circumstances of our removing ourselves from the workforce, then it's probably a happy event. If our health or a loved one's health, for example, has declined to the point that we can no longer work, then it could be less happy.
Yeah, that makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. Those who are forced into retirement are not always where they want to be. Or if your company forces you into retirement, it may not be a happy milestone either. I mentioned that we're not necessarily going to focus on financial part of retirement, but your finances do impact the emotional aspect of your retirement as well. So how could finances affect how happy we are in our retirement?
That's a great question, Kathy. We all know that about getting ready to retire financially. Pensions, 401ks, investment portfolios, Social Security, all those kinds of things. We think about money a lot prior to retirement. Often this is the only planning for retirement that is done, is is this financial aspect. So financially, we get ready by saving, investing, paying off or reducing debt. We may downsize or modify our home. So what we are doing is planning for the changes that will occur when we retire. Our finances can also impact our emotional health. If we've saved enough, whatever enough means, it can reduce some of the worry that we might have about retirement. If a person's lifestyle needs to be changed significantly, it could be a stressor. If you don't have the resources available that you think that you would like, then sometimes that can cause stress as well. So retirees often worry about having enough money to last all their lives, and so that's a question that we really can't answer, right? So that can be a concern. So, but an interesting thing is different people look at money differently. That doesn't change at retirement.
Very true. You have those who like to overindulge and those who always live below their means, and so I think it's a really good, important point to talk about.
Yes, and that kind of keeps going on.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So, we know that there's a change that takes place. So what other kinds of changes occur when people retire?
Well, as you know, Kathy, change can be positive change, things that we're looking forward to. Changes in routine, morning rituals when we get up, we get dressed, any stops we make when we commute, if we commute. If that changes, sometimes we just feel off, right? I remember when my mom retired, she said she would never need an alarm clock again. And she didn't. She still woke up before 6 a.m. every morning, like she had been the previous 30 years for her 7 a.m. shift. So we become creatures of routine.
That is so true. I can remember my dad, he would still get up at the same time every single day, go to the same coffee shop to get his coffee because he missed his friend that worked at the coffee shop. The ladies that were there, I think that he might have been the highlight of their day, but they also might have been the highlight of his day. I'm not quite sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, you mentioned some things about your routine or the people. So, I think when I retire, one of the things that I'm going to miss the most is my friends at work. Do you think that is something that's normal? Is that something that a lot of people feel, or am I just too connected to the folks that I work with?
I think that's absolutely right. Right. So as you know, we get so much more from work than just a paycheck, right? So it's normal to miss your coworkers or your work friends. Those feelings of connection are often what retirees say they miss the most. We see them awake more than we do our families.
So, when we're thinking about moving into retirement, are there phases or stages that most people go through when it comes to retirement?
Yes, there are. There's 4 or 5 stages, depending on which of the retirement experts that you look at, right? There's a key to retirement is the pre-planning phase of retirement. So most of the time they say when retirement's nearing, you're feeling antsy with excitement, sometimes anxiety. This is the phase where retirement is still off in the distance, and you start to make plans for your day. To prepare the best retirement, these 5 things should be done during the pre-retirement phase. Imagine your ideal retirement. So what are your dreams and goals for retirement? What do you see yourself doing? So what activities do you want to pursue? How do you want to grow? By getting the clear picture of your ideal retirement, you can start making plans now to make it a reality. Take stock in your health. Retirement can be a time when health problems start to crop up. So it's important to get a head start on maintaining your health. That means eating right, exercising regularly, staying up to date on preventive care. You start to think about health insurance. Is it going to be Medicare, private insurance? Is there going to be a gap if you retire before you can get Medicare? We start to think about those things. Get your finances in order. Your income will change in retirement. So it's important that you make spending and saving habits that are aligned with your new budget. This may mean downsizing your home, getting rid of debt, or increasing your retirement savings. And we would say if we look at universal design as well as to look at as we age in place in our home. Build a support network. That's that friends that you were talking about, right? As you approach retirement, take some time to socially engage, reconnect with old friends, and make new ones. A strong social network is the key ingredient for a happy retirement. And stay clear of loneliness. According to a loneliness study by AARP, people over 45, 35% of older adults are lonely. Loneliness is a significant predictor of poor health. The report found that lonely people are less likely to be involved in social events, which too can mean poor health, since being social is so important for your mental, physical, and emotional well-being. So some other consequences that the study said: 45% increased risk of death if you're lonely, 59% greater risk of mental physical decline, a decline in your ability to perform activities of daily living, brain development biomarkers associated with Alzheimer's. It can be contagious. And then decide when you want to retire, right? So these 4 things let you know if it's time for you to retire. Are you emotionally burnt out? Do you feel like work's sucking the life out of you? If you just don't want to, if you're dreading going in, you just can't stand to think about it, then that's a sign, right? Your health decline is starting to decline, right? So you're starting to have health problems, then you may think about retiring, because sometimes you feel better when you retire, or that stress of the routine goes away. So that makes you feel better. Are you financially prepared? And then finally, you don't identify with your job anymore. It's not who you are, it's what you do. When it becomes that might be the time to retire.
I love those. I love that information, those tips. The one I want to go back to, making sure that you stay clear of loneliness. And you talked about brain health and cognitive abilities, and just those interactions with people can get your brain firing and making you think a little bit more, especially, if you get into some type of debate with someone over some topic. Challenging what your thoughts are sometimes is great. And if you're staying home alone, that's not a good one. And then the other side of that too is, we talk about eating as you age. And a lot of people forego healthy, nutritious meals because they don't want to eat alone, right? It's not as much fun to make food for yourself. But if you are join these groups, or if you have luncheons and those types of things, it can really also help you with, watching your nutrition and making sure that you're eating a healthy diet as well. So I really appreciate all of those. What is the first stage then of retirement once you start retiring?
Okay, so the first phase or stage of retirement is sometimes called the freedom stage, the honeymoon, or the vacation phase. This is when work responsibilities are no longer there. I don't have to, is often heard during this stage. The dream has come true. Time to do what I want, when I want, travel, golf, the dream vacation. But it becomes important to start thinking about those long-term goals, right? So get used to the change, the idea of the change. Just know that it's a transition. This is a time to do that. Start to create a new routine, and then find ways to be active.
So you said it's like a honeymoon stage, the very first stage, and we know that honeymoons don't usually last forever. So what is next? What is the next stage of retirement then?
No, they don't usually last forever, right? That'd be nice, but they don't. The next stage is sometimes called, is that all there is? Or the disenchantment stage. So people start to feel the 5 losses, according to Dr. Riley Mons. And during a TED Talk, it says routines, identity, relationships, purpose, and power are 5 losses that we feel. One statistic in a 2022 survey said 1 in 5 retirees rate their quality of life to be less than expected. So there's no sugarcoating it. The disenchantment stage of retirement is tough. After years of planning and saving, many retirees find themselves facing a period of disillusionment, disappointment. Right, so they get to that point and they say, this is not what I thought it was going to be. So things that we can do is have realistic expectations of yourself and of retirement, right? So it's important to manage that. Don't expect retirement to be perfect. Your life probably wasn't perfect before you retired, but it is a time of opportunities and growth. Be proactive, get help. Okay. If you feel that you're overwhelmed, then you should get help. And then set life goals. If you have goals, then that's something to work forward to. So once the honeymoon phase is over, you'll need something purposeful to focus on. Retirement can be an opportunity to finally accomplish those things that you've always said you wanted to do but never had time to do. So be patient and keep exploring until you find something that feels right for you, and always be growing.
Sounds a little bit discouraging. So does it get better after that second stage there?
Yes, it absolutely does get better. Again, Dr. Mones calls this the next phase, the trial and error phase. It's called by some the reorientation phase. So start by asking yourself, how can I make my life meaningful again? Because again, you're experiencing those losses that we talked about. He suggests that we try activities that you've always wanted to try. Find something that makes you want to get up in the morning. So take inventory of your life. This is a good time to reflect on your life and what's important to you. What do you want to change? What do you want to keep the same? And if you don't have to worry about money fears, or if you didn't have to worry about money fears, what would you do in your life? Reach out to your network. Again, try to avoid being lonely. Make an effort to stay connected with your friends and family. Join groups. Connect with your authentic self. Figure out what you like to do, what you enjoy, what makes you feel happy, whether it's a hobby or activities or the people, the places, the adventures, the things that bring you joy. And then focus on life's long learning. Never, ever stop learning.
So, we've had those 3 stages. So I'm guessing that maybe the final stage then is just called figuring it out.
I think you're really close there. I think it's called stability or reinvent and rewire, maybe as Moines called it. Protect your retirement purpose. So do the things that you want to do, the things that you want to reinvent, focus on that, prioritize self-care. The more you connect with your authentic self, take care of your mental and physical health, and heal. The more profound your retirement experience, right? So the more you can do that, the more the better your experience is. Embrace challenges. It's okay because again, you're using that brain, Kathy. If we're thinking about stuff and we're analyzing a problem, we're trying to do that, and we're still learning. That's lifelong learning from those challenges that we have. Focus on growth. It may take some time and effort, but find your groove. This is a solid way to dig deep and uncover some amazing growth possibilities. The more consistent and focused you are with your personal growth, the more rewarding your retirement will be. Be fully present, whether it's meditating or exercising or journaling or spending time with family. Grounding yourself in awareness in the present moment is everything. May you savor the most profound experiences in your daily life, from little to large. So everything that you do, may you notice that. And then according to Moines, if you want to squeeze the most juice out of retirement, it almost always involves service to others. So be interested and engaged, and all of those 5 losses are recovered.
Ken, you talked a little bit about that, the reinventing yourself stage or that trial and error stage. Do you think that people can move through that and then have an error and realize, as they try to move into the 4th stage, that maybe their trial and error stage, they may have to go back to that and try something new to fulfill that gap?
Absolutely, Kathy. That's a great question, because if you didn't find what you want, and that's why it's called the error, part of the error. So you think, hey, I'd like to do that. I'd like to be, I'd like to play guitar. I've always wanted to play guitar. And then you start to play guitar and you really don't enjoy it that much, and you're really maybe not that great at it. So why would you keep doing that? It's like, no, I decided I was going to be a guitar player. Do the things that, again, bring you joy, make you happy, whatever that is. So you may have to try several different things to get to that point. You might find things that, again, that you reinvent yourself. Oftentimes, this looks like something like starting a business or volunteers, that kind of thing. So you might volunteer for your faith in your faith community, or you might start a soup kitchen, or you might do some things. But basically, if you're giving to others, it kind of takes your mind off yourself, and so that makes you happier.
I think so much about, we had a gentleman in our community that he wanted to like solve all the world's problems as far as healthy eating and the food bank being depleted. And he was really gung-ho about it. And as he was trying to do all these things, he kept facing these barriers. And so he almost went back to that disenchantment stage during that process, but he kept plugging forward and kept taking suggestions and had a good group of people around him. So they kept changing things and navigating and maybe modifying what they wanted to do in order to get to that end result of finding that meaning in retirement for him. And so I think that's a really good thing to think and remember. You know, I know that people struggle a little bit more when it comes to being cold outside. Maybe we isolate ourselves a little bit more in retirement. And so that might be another thing that people may hover in one stage longer than what you think they should. So I really appreciate all of these ideas. And do you have any thoughts at all for how people might face retirement when a loved one becomes ill, or any of those stages that might like get disrupted through that process?
What you can do, I guess, would be to look at that as another change, just like the changes affected us when we retired in routines and in our social circles and all the things that we care about. You lose a loved one, especially a spouse, or they're sick, then that changes, right? So your circles often shrink. So what you have to do is focus on your self-health, your well-being, mentally, physically, still trying to do those things that you can do to take care of yourself. And if you can embrace the memories of that person, that helps, right? So if you look at it as like the good things that you've done together, I think the key to happiness in retirement and a lot of other things is to not look back at what you lost, but to look forward to what you have, or concentrate on what you have.
Yeah, I like that. The reason I brought it up is because when you go back and you look at those things that you can do to reinvent yourself, prioritizing your self-care. Even if you have a loved one that's ill, you prioritize those things so that you may have plans in place to have caregivers come in and help so that you can take care of yourself in those instances. And then, like you mentioned, being thankful for what you have instead of reaching for things that you can't. We talk about that so much with mindfulness. And so when we look at that part of being fully present, when you're reaching and trying to grab things that are not attainable, you're never going to find true happiness. And so it's being happy with what you have, being satisfied, but at the same time, just not giving in to things that may be challenging you as well.
Yes. And when I worked at the Alzheimer's Association, there was a part of it that was called the caregiver stress sessions, and we talked about that. And one of the things that we talked about was if you're on an airplane, and when the flight attendants talk about what to do in case of cabin pressure loss, and they say, hey, there's going to be an oxygen mask drop down. And it says, put your mask on first. And if you're caring for somebody, still put your mask on first. Because the moral of the story is we can't care for others if we don't care for ourselves.
Yeah. And when I talk to caregivers too, I tell them so much that you want to make sure that you are giving your family the best of you, not just what's left of you. And so that kind of holds on to that same idea of taking care of yourself in order to be able to put someone else, take care of someone else as well. Well, I really appreciate all of your ideas that you have today. I think it's such an important topic, moving just beyond our finances, but looking at all the other emotional aspects of retirement. And I hope that people were able to get some tips from this. And if they find themselves in some of these stages, know that they can move into the next stage and still find that meaningful retirement that they're looking for.
Yes, and they can also understand that if they're not completely happy, that's perfectly normal. We go through these stages, and that's okay.
Well, thank you, Ken. I really appreciate it. And we are glad you guys all joined us today for this session. Stay tuned for our next ones that'll be coming up in the coming month. Thank you.